The smell hit first, that sharp, chemical sting that drags memory back to war zones, and beneath it something worse, burning flesh. I turned onto Maple Grove Lane 3 days earlier than planned, still clutching a bouquet and a teddy bear, ready to surprise Emma and meet our little girl for the first time. Instead, I saw smoke. Black columns cloying into the afternoon sky from where our white 2-story house with blue shutters should have been calm and empty. I abandoned the car and ran. "Emma!" I shouted, my voice raw. Neighbors stood in their yards, phones out, eyes wide, but nobody moved toward the flames. Sirens were coming somewhere, but not fast enough. The front door gave under my shoulder and heat hit me like a thrown weight. The living room was a furnace. Wedding photos were melting in their frames. I dropped low and crawled, every Navy survival drill snapping into place, following the floor plan I'd known for years. A weak cough called me upstairs. The stairs were half gone, fire eating the wood, but I climbed anyway, ignoring the screaming heat. In our bedroom, I found Emma slumped near the window, unconscious, her dress blackened around a swollen, smoke-streaked belly. Her hair was singed, her arms raw where she'd tried to shield herself. "Baby, I've got you," I said, voice breaking as I lifted her. She felt too light. I held her against my chest, one arm under her back, the other over her stomach, like a human brace. Getting out felt impossible. Blaze and smoke clawed at us. My skin blistered under the heat. I crashed through a first-floor window, glass shredding my uniform, rolled onto the wet grass, and kept Emma pressed to me. "Help! Somebody help!" I screamed until people finally moved. Firefighters arrived. Paramedics worked on her while I stood there covered in soot and burn ointment, refusing to be treated until I knew the baby and Emma were alive. At the hospital, a surgeon's face told me everything I'd been too terrified to hear. They'd done an emergency C-section. My daughter was alive, impossibly small and fragile in the NICU, but critical. Emma's body was burned over a large percentage, her lungs soaked from smoke. She was in an induced coma and fighting. The doctor warned the next 72 hours were crucial. I held onto that word, fight, and sat by their beds, listening to machines breathe for them, promising I wouldn't leave. Detectives found me in that hospital room the next morning. Rodriguez and Chen asked questions with the slow carefulness of people who've seen too much. Before she passed out, Emma had whispered a name, Karen. It clicked. Karen Hutchinson, Maple Grove HOA president, the woman who'd made Emma's life miserable for months. The complaints, the fine notices, the measuring tape pulled across our lawn while I was deployed. The vegetable garden Emma planted 3 weeks earlier, labeled unauthorized and threatened with thousands in fines. The voicemail Emma recorded, the one where Karen promised to make them regret moving here. I'd heard enough to know this wasn't random. The fire investigators confirmed what my gut already screamed. Multiple ignition points, accelerant found poured around the exterior. Arson. They'd checked nearby cameras. Karen's car drove past our house 3 times in the hour before the fire and sat parked with a clear view of the house when it ignited. "We're bringing her in for questioning," Chen said. "But you have to promise me you'll let us handle it." I nodded. I knew what my hands wanted to do, and I knew what the consequences would be if I answered with my fists instead of the law. The next week was hell on earth. I'd been through BUD/S training, missions where every breath could have been my last, but nothing compared to watching my wife and newborn daughter cling to life by threads. Hope's tiny body fought to breathe through the machines that kept her alive. Every day, I sat beside that incubator, whispering to her through the plastic, "Your mom is fighting too, baby girl. She's strong. You've got her strength and my stubbornness. You're not giving up, not after all this." Emma lay in her hospital bed, trapped in a coma that doctors said her body needed to survive. Every visit broke me a little more. The stillness of her chest rising only with the ventilator's rhythm, the bandages that turned the woman I loved into something almost unrecognizable. But I stayed. I split my time between their rooms, barely sleeping, barely eating. My brothers from the SEALs came by, leaving supplies, food, quiet words of support. My commanding officer told me to take as long as I needed. On day 5, the news came Karen Hutchinson was officially arrested. Attempted murder. Arson. A dozen more charges stacked like bricks on her back. On day 6, Hope's condition stabilized. Her heartbeat evened out. Her little lungs were growing stronger. And on day 7, everything changed. I was sitting beside Emma's bed, reading aloud from one of her favorite books, the one she'd been halfway through before I left for deployment, when I felt it. A faint pressure around my hand. At first, I thought I imagined it. Then it happened again, stronger. "Emma?" My heart hammered. Baby, can you hear me? Her eyelids flickered. I hit the nurse call button without looking away. Come on, sweetheart. Come back to me. Hope needs you. I need you. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused, then locked on mine. Confusion, recognition, then fear. Jake, it came out like sandpaper. I'm here, I said quickly, tears already falling. You're safe. You're in the hospital. You've been in a coma for 7 days. Her hand went to her belly, panic filling her eyes when she felt it flat. Hope, she gasped. She's alive, I said fast. She's tiny, but she's fighting. She's alive. Emma broke down. The nurse rushed in, followed by Dr. Patel, the man I'd come to think of as a guardian angel. Welcome back, Mrs. Mitchell, he said warmly. You gave us quite a scare. The next hour was a blur of explanations about the surgery, the burns, the recovery ahead, but none of it mattered. She was awake. When they wheeled her down to the NICU and she saw Hope for the first time, we both cried. She's so small, Emma whispered. She's a Mitchell, I said, wrapping my arm carefully around her. Small but mighty. Emma stared through the glass, tears streaking her soot-marked cheeks. Karen did this, she said quietly. I saw her outside. She was pouring something around the house. I tried to run, but it spread too fast. She's under arrest, I said. She'll never hurt anyone again. Emma's jaw tightened. If she'd killed our baby, Jake, not even God could have saved her from me. That's when I knew my wife was back. Scarred, shaken, but alive in every way that mattered. A week later, Rodriguez and Chen came back with news. We went through Karen's house and computer, Rodriguez said, exhaustion behind his eyes. What we found, Mrs. Mitchell, you weren't her first target. Emma tensed beside me. I took her hand. She's done this before? 3 other families, Chen said, flipping her tablet around to show photos. She harassed them until they sold their homes. We found files, pictures, schedules, fabricated violations. She'd been embezzling HO funds, committing insurance fraud, and keeping a diary. Her diary? Emma asked. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Every twisted thought. She hated you, Emma. Said you flaunted your perfect life. Said you needed to be taught a lesson. The day of the fire, she wrote she was going to cleanse the neighborhood of the problem if you died. She said it would be an example to others about respecting authority. Emma's hand trembled in mine. I felt my pulse thunder in my ears. You've got her, I said through my teeth. You've got her dead to rights. The DA says it's the strongest case he's seen in 20 years, Rodriguez said. Between the diary, the footage, and the witness who saw her buying gas cans that morning, she's finished. What about the HOA? I asked. They let her terrorize people. They claim ignorance, Chen said, rolling her eyes. But we're investigating. For now, their insurance company's refusing to cover your losses, saying Karen acted outside her authority. So we get nothing? Emma's voice cracked. We lost everything, and they just washed their hands of it. Actually, Chen said with a small smile, there's someone who wants to help. A lawyer, Margaret Whitmore. She specializes in HOA abuse cases. Saw your story on the news. She's offering to represent you pro bono. Emma looked at me, exhausted but hopeful. Justice, I said quietly, the right way. 4 weeks after the fire, Hope hit 4 pounds. The NICU nurses brought a tiny cake and sang softly. Emma held our daughter for the first time, her arms trembling from effort, her eyes full of light. After everything we'd lost, that moment felt like winning a war. Emma's body began to heal, though the scars would always stay. The nightmares were worse. Some nights she woke screaming, clutching me, convinced she smelled smoke again. I'd hold her, whispering reminders that she was safe. Margaret Whitmore turned out to be everything Chen promised: silver hair, sharp mind, and a fire in her voice that could cut steel. We're going after them, she said. The HOA ignored every complaint about Karen's harassment. That's negligent supervision. We'll sue for damages, medical costs, and punitive penalties. And as for Karen, when she's convicted, you'll hit her with a civil suit too. She'll pay every day for what she did. Emma nodded, eyes steady. I want her to feel trapped, helpless, afraid. Margaret's tone softened. She will. But the best revenge, Mrs. Mitchell, is living well, raising your daughter, rebuilding, showing her she didn't win. 4 months later, the trial began. Hope was home. Emma could finally walk without help. I'd retired early to take care of them both. We sat in the courtroom every day, Emma's scarred hands folded in her lap, my arm around her shoulder, as the woman who'd destroyed our lives sat across from us in an orange jumpsuit. Karen's blank face didn't change as the prosecution played the footage, her car circling the block, her buying gas cans, her diary full of venom. Every word from that book was another knife in my gut. Then Emma took the stand. She moved slowly, every step deliberate, every scar visible. "I was 7 months pregnant," she said, voice steady. I begged her to stop. I apologized for the garden. I offered to remove it. She said it was too late, that I needed to learn my place. "What happened the day of the fire?" the prosecutor asked softly. I saw her outside. At first I didn't understand. Then I smelled gasoline. I tried to run, but the doors were locked from the outside. The fire started everywhere at once. I thought about my baby, about Jake coming home to ashes. I tried to break the window, but I passed out before I could. "What would you say to the defendant if you could?" Emma turned, met Karen's eyes for the first time, and asked, her voice like broken glass, "Why? Why did you hate me so much?" Emma looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the soft gold of the setting sun. "You know," she said, her voice calm but steady, "sometimes I think about all of it, the fire, the pain, the scars, and I realize something. If none of that had happened, we might still be living under someone else's rules, pretending that peace means silence. Now we know what real peace feels like." I pulled her closer, breathing in the faint scent of jasmine from her hair. "You turned hell into home," I whispered. She smiled faintly. "No, we did." The kids' laughter echoed across the yard, Hope chasing fireflies with a jar that glowed like a small galaxy in her hands, Jack tripping behind her, determined to catch his own light. Emma leaned her head against my shoulder, her scars catching the moonlight like silver threads. "You ever think Karen's watching from somewhere?" she asked quietly. "Maybe," I said. "And if she is, I hope she sees this. I hope she sees what love built from the ashes she tried to leave behind." Emma nodded. "Then that's enough." We sat there in silence, watching the night settle over our land. The crickets sang, the wind chimes danced, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about what we'd lost. I thought about what we built. A family, a life, a story that didn't end in fire, but in light. Before going inside, Emma whispered, "You remember what I said in the hospital? That if Hope survived, I'd plant a garden so big she'd never run out of things to grow?" I smiled. "Yeah." She gestured toward the rows of roses, lavender, and wildflowers stretching toward the fence line. I kept my promise. I kissed her temple, and look what bloomed. As the porch light flickered on and the night deepened, I realized something I hadn't before. Forgiveness isn't for the ones who wronged you, it's for the ones who survived them. And we had. We survived, and we thrived. The fire had taken everything we owned, but it gave us something far greater, a life no one could ever burn down again. Emma's laughter echoed softly through the night, that kind of quiet joy that only comes after you've seen everything nearly destroyed. The fireflies danced across the yard, their glow flickering like tiny embers that refused to die out, much like us. I looked at Emma, at the woman who had walked through fire and come out stronger, at the scars that told a story not of pain, but of survival. "We survived," I said, my voice low, almost reverent. "We built something beautiful from the ashes." She smiled, that same smile that had carried me through every dark night. "Literally," she said, and for the first time in a long time, we both laughed without any trace of sadness behind it. Karen tried to destroy us. She failed. We were here. We were stronger. We were loved. And she was gone, alone, in a cold cell, her name remembered only as a warning of what hatred can do to a soul. "Is that enough?" I asked. "Does that feel like justice?" Emma looked out across the yard where Hope was chasing fireflies and Jack was clapping his hands, trying to catch one. "Justice is complicated," she said softly. "She got punished by the law. But real justice isn't about punishment. It's about this, us sitting here, safe and together. It's choosing joy even when bitterness would be easier. It's Hope growing up healthy after everything that happened. Karen thought she could break us, but she only made us unbreakable." Her words settled deep inside me like truth carved into stone. The porch light caught the scars on her arms, but to me they looked like armor, proof of everything we'd survived. "You're right," I said quietly. "We won." The Maple Grove fire changed everything. The scars, both seen and unseen, would never fully fade. But survival was never about walking away untouched. It was about walking away still capable of love, still capable of hope, still human. Karen Hutchinson died unmourned, her name whispered only in cautionary tales about abuse of power. Her legacy was destruction. Ours became resilience. The Hope Mitchell Resilience Fund had already sent dozens of children of military families to college. Emma's book had helped thousands of survivors find their voices again. Our home, built far from HOA rules and judgment, was filled with laughter, the smell of home-cooked dinners, and the kind of peace that doesn't come easy, it's earned. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I still dreamed of fire. I'd wake up gasping, my chest tight, the heat of those memories still clinging to me. But then I'd hear Emma breathing beside me. I'd hear Hope and Jack down the hall, tangled in the innocence of sleep. And I'd remember, we survived. Karen never understood this truth. You can't kill love with fire. You can't destroy family with hate. You can only forge them into something stronger, something unbreakable. This story is for every person who's ever stared into the flames of cruelty and chosen to rebuild. For every survivor who refused to let darkness write their ending. Karen's justice came from the system, but our justice came from living, from thriving, from proving that love, no matter how scarred, no matter how tested, always wins. We didn't just survive, we thrived, and that, in the end, was the victory she could never take from us.